And now, marine weather around Alaska.
All right, starting out with a look at tomorrow's weather map here. This active front coming across the Bering Sea, bringing gusty winds into the southwest coast. Eastern Bering Sea, quite a fetch here from the Aleutians right on up into the coastline. That's responsible for those high surf advisories for 4 to 8 foot seas here coming onshore, possibly causing some minor beach erosion. That out through Tuesday. In advance of that, high pressure comes inland for dry weather, sunshine, warmer temperatures. And that continues on the central and eastern part of the state here. As that system comes in Tuesday, by Tuesday afternoon, wind should be coming down, but the coastal or the high surf advisory continues out there for the Bering Strait, all of Norton Sound, Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta coast, including Nunivak Island. Rain spreading to the central Arctic coast there and extending southward all the way down to the eastern Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula. This system out here staying mostly to the west and north of the Aleutian chain, and dry for the southeast coast. Coastal water forecast down that way for Monday. Southwest winds 20 knots, seas around 7 feet, and south to southeast winds at 15 knots on the central coast with 7 foot seas. 6 foot seas to go with east-southeast winds of 15 knots for the north coast. Lynn Canal, southeast wind 15 knots, southeast 15 for Stevens Passage, and Clarence Strait, south wind at 15 knots, 3 foot seas in all those areas. And for Tuesday, Lynn Canal Glacier Bay, north wind 10 knots, seas 2 feet, northwest at 10 with slight seas for Clarence Strait. And for the central and south coast here, northwest winds at 15 to 20 knots, seas up to 7 feet, northwest at 10 knots for the north coast. Prince William Sound, light northwest breeze tomorrow at 10 knots with slight seas, variable winds 10 to 15 knots for the North Gulf Coast, seas 5 to 6 feet. Cook Inlet, north at 10 to 15 with 2 to 3 foot seas, northwest winds 20 knots. Kamishak Bay and the Barren Islands, seas there only up to 4 feet. And then for Tuesday, for the Barren Islands, southeast winds 20 knots, and that's as high as it goes for any of these areas. 6 foot seas there. Kamishak Bay, southeast at 15, seas 4 feet, and kind of a variable, generally southerly component to the winds, but only at 10 knots for Cook Inlet with 3 foot seas. Variable winds, 10 knots Prince William Sound, variable 10 to 15 for the North Gulf Coast. Kodiak Island, west winds, west-northwest winds, 15 knots, seas 3 to 6 feet. Variable at 10 for Bristol Bay, and then a little windier here for the Alaska Peninsula, looking at south to southeasterlies 15 to 25 knots with 2 to 4 foot seas. And for Tuesday, even windier conditions for the peninsula in store with south to southwest winds at 20 to 30 knots, seas running 6 to 9 feet, southeast to 20 knots for Bristol Bay, Kodiak Island, south to southeast winds 15 knots, seas up to 6 feet. And out here for the western Aleutians, Kiska to Shemya, light variable winds out there, seas 4 to 5 feet, south to southeast 15, Amchitka Island. And that's behind the front here, ahead of the front, or along and ahead of the front. Small craft advisories from Adak and Atka all the way over to Alaska Island. 25 to 30 knot winds from the south. And then for Tuesday, on Alaska Island, southwesterlies still at 30 knots with 6 to 10 foot seas. Nikolsky, west 15 knots, 7 to 10 foot seas. Same thing for Adak and Atka. And for the western Aleutians, variable winds 10 to 15 knots. For the southwest coast, we've got gale warnings tomorrow for the Kuskokwim Delta coast, south at 35 knots, seas 8 feet. 30 knot winds elsewhere here. Pribilof, St. Matthew Island, Yukon Delta coast, St. Lawrence Island, south 30 knots with seas running anywhere from 6 to 13 feet. And Norton Sound, small craft advisory, south winds 25 knots. Those hold through Tuesday there for Norton Sound with 7 foot seas. Small craft advisories, St. Lawrence Island, Yukon Delta coast, south at 25 knots. And west winds, 25 knots here out over the Bering Sea for St. Matthew Island and the Pribilofs, and then south 30 knots to the Kuskokwim Delta coast. So a couple of windy days coming up out here with seas just under 10 feet. And for the Chukchi Sea tomorrow, south winds 20 to 25 knots, seas up to 7 feet, south at 20 for the western coast. Central coast south at 15, eastern Beaufort Sea coast lighter winds and lower sea heights. East-southeast 5 to 10 knots, 1 to 2 foot seas. And for the day on Tuesday, eastern Beaufort Sea coast 10 to 15 knots from the east-southeast, seas 2 to 3 feet. South at 20 knots of the central and western Arctic coast with 4 foot seas. Small current advisories in the Chukchi Sea. South winds 25 knots with 5 to 7 foot seas.